Okay, welcome back to Hoeffelhohman FC. This is episode 12, part 3 of Pep Confidential by Martí Perarnau.
We still have to look up how to pronounce his name.
I'm following him on X, so there's that. But feel free to leave a like and a subscribe. If you want to follow me on X, I post the links to the YouTube and the Spotify. You can just look up my name, Nate, at 12_12 studios. I don't think anybody following me there is a real person. Pretty sure all 35 followers are bots, but that's where we're at.
We're still just talking about stuff for the fun of it.
But we'll be covering chapters 10 through 14, which will take us to part 2 of this book. I think there's 4 parts.
Okay.
It's small chapters divvied up into very long parts. But before we get into the book, those following the Premier League will know that Pep Guardiola has had a few firsts happen in his life. He's never lost 3 consecutive matches in his coaching career, and it has happened. This one isn't a first, but a 50-odd game, I think it's more than 50, home game stretch of being unbeaten has come to an end at the Etihad to the hands of Tottenham, who have 2 of the losses of the 5 in a row.
Things are changing.
Well, I do not count them out. They play so well in the second half of the Premier League season. So I'm not going to count them out just yet. Even with their skid, they still sit second. I think only 3 of the games were Premier League games. 1 was a cup game, 1 was a Champions League game, and then 3 league games. But they still sit 1 point ahead of Chelsea, ahead of Arsenal, and ahead of Brighton, who are all on 22 points.
Wait, hang on. So, are you sure it's recording there?
Yeah, we're recording.
Okay. Usually I can see my voice or our voices like ups and downs a bit more profoundly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's fine though. As
okay,
long as it's picking up something, we're good.
If you're confident, yeah.
Yeah, I'm confident. I'm confident in it. Liverpool have a healthy 8-point lead now, and Tottenham just must be so inconsistent, because I know this isn't. Well, this doesn't mean results, but Liverpool have a 12 goal difference, 24 scored, 8 against. Man City has a 5 goal difference. Chelsea has a 9 goal difference. Arsenal a 9 goal difference. Brighton 5, like Man City. And then Tottenham, the only other team with a double-digit goal difference at 14. But they find themselves 6th below all the teams I previously mentioned. Just unable to close out games. It's crazy.
Who's their coach now?
If you're going to ask me to say that guy's name. He's an Australian man who previously coached Celtic.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Agne Postecoglou. I will show you that guy.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is his... He's been there since 2023.
Okay. Yeah, I just haven't been paying attention to...
They haven't looked any different than regular old Tottenham, but I just thought that goal difference was an interesting stat.
I mean, watching the highlights against Manchester City, they look pretty sharp. Like, they played some good football. Not that Manchester City didn't. But that's Tottenham. But
they play good, and then
they don't.
And then their next game, you'll be like, was that the same team that just beat Man City? They play Roma next. Maybe they'll beat them, and then they'll lose to Fulham, and then lose to Bournemouth back-to-back. That's a Tottenham thing to do.
But I'll be keeping track just to see if you called that straight on.
But Pep also signed a 2-year extension.
Right. 2 years or 1 year?
I read 2 years.
Okay.
He has 1 year left on this one. Like it 1 year on this one, and then extend it 2 years to like 27, I believe it is.
That's probably what I saw. Yeah.
And I don't think there's too much to them skidding. Maybe some defensive errors, maybe a regretting of selling Cole Palmer and not getting rid of Phil Foden because you wouldn't even have felt the De Bruyne injury.
Yeah, maybe not.
But obviously the Rodri injury, as we've been reading about this book, how Pep does it. I mean, it's all about the six. It's all about the six. His whole system flows through the six, and he works very closely with the six. And Rodri's a Ballon d'Or 6, and he's out. So the system, people filling in, it's not going to be. The system will never be as high flowing as it could be. Doesn't mean they won't be able to win games. City's going to win again without him. They made it to second place, like mostly without him because he got hurt pretty early on.
Yeah.
And look at what Klopp did. You know, Liverpool weren't as high flying, and the midfield needed a little bit of an overhaul. Not too many people left, mainly bringing people in. He signs a 2-year contract. The team has money. He's going to bring in a couple midfielders probably in the offseason. Probably a couple of defenders. The attack isn't so much the problem. I give him an off season and most of this stuff is fixed. Squad depth at those key positions, not having to rely on the youth academy. That's not quite up to snuff just yet, but he has to.
Yeah, I definitely think he had a very good balance of how to go about each season with what he has and then what he can get later on.
Yeah. Erling Haaland still, even though you see some misses, he still has 15 goals in 17 games this year. Like,
it's still a good stat, yeah. Even though he missed so many against Tottenham, it was still just odd to watch him not score a goal.
Right. Or they sell him for $200 million, and all that goes into just 8 players that come in.
Right.
Because he can play without Erling Haaland. Like, obviously, he had a lot of success with him, but he's used to not having that kind of forward. So who knows? But until Pep leaves, City's going to be there. They'll be around. They're going to go on an unbeaten run. Will it be enough to come back this time? Maybe. It just depends on how consistent Liverpool can be. Because it's hard to be consistent the whole season. So far, Liverpool's remained healthy. Are they going to be able to remain healthy, or are they going to have some injuries? So, City has some injuries now. It's a more competitive league, as we're going to get into the book. It's not as a competitive league at the time, and they were able to fix the problems of lots of injuries and still make it work.
Yeah.
Maybe not make it work in
some
Europe,
rearranging,
but they made it work domestically. But, Chapter 10. We don't have a Messi or a Ronaldo, but we have the right collective mentality. I didn't know who said that, so it was interesting to learn who said the quote that became the title of this chapter. But starting off here, more training. We're getting ready for the season, getting ready for the German Super Cup against Dortmund. Matthias Sommer, the club sports director, is seated on the same bench, chatting about what Guardiola is instructing his men to do out there on the pitch. The team is playing a game of 10 versus 11, and the coach wants to see his forwards pressing hard and his defenders and midfielders marking tightly. Guardiola is running up and down, all the while shouting instructions whilst his players work with formidable intensity. Sommer smiles. We're going to have some fun. Or this is where the fun begins, as some would say. We have 2 objectives. Sommer will tell us this Sunday afternoon. We want to establish ourselves at the top level and then set about building an era of repeated and consistent success.
Yeah.
It's just the same talking points a little bit here. You know, they want to build a new empire, which is just funny because I don't quite remember. I'm sure we'll get into it, but it looks like what Man City built was what Bayern was looking for. I think they may have bailed out. I don't know if Pep leaves at the end of the 3 years or if they wanted to move on from him.
I'm not really sure. I don't really remember that detail.
By the end of the book, I'll have looked
at the answer. We'll let you guys know.
Well, it's only the first season here, but I will have looked that up for myself. But it's still just exciting. Nobody knows what this is going to look like. There's only things to dream about. Training continues. Pep's thinking about who's going to play here or there. The fun things of thinking about football, especially if you have so many good players to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Bastian Schweinsteiger going to play? Is he going to be the pivot? Is Mario Götze going to be the false nine? Is Toni Kroos going to be the pivot? I can also throw in Thomas Muller into the midfield if I want. Arjen Robben, Frank Ribery, all these guys.
All the while, Pep is envisioning one thing, but it doesn't really evolve into what he has planned for and just doesn't quite turn out the way he imagined it. Which is going to always be something a coach has to kind of deal with, and especially in his environment professionally.
So here's an example of one of their training afternoons on a Sunday. It's a 40-minute game which has two objectives. Pep wants the forwards to work on their penetration, and he also wants to see how coordinated the other players can be in pressing the opposition. To achieve this first objective, Mandzukic and Muller, supported by Ribery and Shaqiri, have to press and punish the opposition defenders until they have them absolutely hemmed in on one side. Once again, Pep is pleased with their performance. Their pressing is brutal. If you ask Muller to make a 40-meter diagonal run to the other wing, he'll do it at full speed, regain his position, and do it 100 times more if necessary. Man, when you see that kind of stuff in practice, you can only be impressed.
Can only be excited.
You can only be pleased. You know, Pep's come into a new place, and he's surrounded by really great professionals who are ready to learn, which was a thing that we read about when Klopp arrived at Liverpool.
Right.
People are learning a new thing. There's a little bit of growing pains, but the players were open-minded, ready to hear from an experienced manager who knows how to win.
Yeah, I think that's why it kind of falls into place a bit easier when the players know that their coach has like a long-term game plan. Like they can just follow what he's doing.
Right. And
there won't be a whole lot of doubt, which is, you know, always something that nice to have when there's going to be new ideas. But, yeah.
But Pep isn't really known for his pressing, but that's what they're practicing.
Right.
But he makes it clear that pressing of this ferocity around the opposition penalty area won't be the norm in the coming season. We'll need to work this hard on the pressing only against teams like Barca and perhaps one or two more. Every other team, well, the second or third time we press them hard, they'll just resort to kicking the ball long and gifting us possession, which he was right about. That is kind of how it happens. But as we'll get into it, even though those are only a rare occasion that he's going to do this, he doesn't like to leave anything to chance. And this kind of coach who makes sure his players understand every maneuver, even the ones they'll only use 3 times a season maximum. He wants his men to have a range of tools at their disposal. The majority of teams won't play out of the back when they face the greats like Bayern, Barca, Arsenal, Madrid, or Man City. Therefore, knowing how to press the keeper and his fullbacks via strikers who are pushed as high up the pitch as possible is a resource we'll need rarely, but we must know how to do it. That's why Pep likes to explain it and keeps on explaining it throughout the year. Liverpool just did this. It wasn't an opponent that you're normally going to see try to play out of the back, but if they didn't know how to do it, they wouldn't have won today. Maybe. It's hard to tell, it's hypotheticals. But Southampton were playing out of the back, and they weren't giving up on it. And Liverpool know how to press a team playing out of the back. And they won 3-2. 2 of the goals were effective pressing.
Turnovers in their
The
half.
goalie's playing it out of the back, and we force a mistake and score.
Nice.
Something they already knew how to do from Jurgen Klopp, and it was used. It was a tool on their tool belt, and they used it to win. So it's a
pretty
smart
nuts.
thing. Yeah, it's a smart thing that he's trying to do with them, even though they may not have to do it all the time.
I mean, later on in the book, it also just explains how difficult it is to play at full intensity at a high level and also think about what you have to do, not just you as a player, but collectively, like pressing, like figuring out the right moment, and then like, oh, this is the moment, and then going into press, and then hopefully the rest of your teammates are also following your lead. And it is really difficult.
Back to the book. The second objective of the training session focuses on ensuring players combine and cooperate to press the opposition wherever on the pitch, and on marking. When the central defender goes out to press the opposition striker, the organizing midfielder must drop back and fill his space. If the fullback moves up to press the winger, then the central defender must move to cover, and once again, the pivot midfielder must drop back to cover the central defender. If they succeed in pressing the winger, then the fullback, central defender, and organizing midfielder will each have been crucial in robbing the ball back.
Which many football fans have seen live nowadays.
It always seems like Man City has an extra guy on the pitch. Even when they go down to a 10 guys, it's like they're still keeping the ball. They're still making chances. This stuff works, especially with how obsessive that he drives it into his teams. But a man we've continued to mention just because he's in the book, but we know that his career with Bayern doesn't really take off. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. He is supposedly going to be the next Sergio Busquets for Pep, but that never materializes. He is just 17 and does most things right automatically. He has also come along ready and willing to learn, unlike another promising young player who seems to react badly to Guardiola's corrections. So I only underline that just as a highlight to players. Like, be ready to be criticized and to know that it's different when your positioning or your ability or your physical readiness is criticized, that it is not a slight against you as a human being, but a skill that's trying to be sharpened. And when a skill is trying to be sharpened and somebody is sharpening you, there can be some discomfort, there can be some pain. But if you're resistant to it, you're gonna take it personally, and it's gonna affect your development. But if you can accept criticism, if you can accept these corrections with an open mind, your learning will rapidly. Well, one, you'll continue to learn how you learn, and you're going to be able to actually receive the information and retain it.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be afraid to fail in that, in sense like somebody tries to correct you and you don't do it right away. Just keep going. I continually bring up, just because it's what I'm doing with my archery lessons. I want my coaches to correct me, tell me what I'm doing wrong, tell me what I need to do. Is my elbow bad? Is my release sucking? Oh, my bow hand was a little wobbly there. I gotta shape that up. I gotta make sure though when I release though, even though you gotta have a stable bow hand, you gotta be able to let the bow drop when it shoots, so it's also loose at the same time. All these things. But if every time they corrected me, it was a problem, it's gonna mess up me.
I know what I'm doing.
Right.
Don't tell me what to do.
Either I grow a bad ego, or now I'm unwilling to learn, and that's gonna mess me up in the future, and it just doesn't solve anything. So if you're a player, listen to your coaches. Even if you don't like your coach, just be open to it. It's just going to help you develop that mentality, so that maybe when you get a coach that you do like, you can easily start that relationship. But if you're already resistant to coaches, you may not even realize when you have one that actually gives a crap.
Yeah, well said. Just having an open mind is how do we get kids to understand what that means? Just maybe like, would you say like not being resistant to what somebody is criticizing them on, or just like, hey, babe, just don't resist. Like it's okay. Like just listen to what we're saying, do the thing, and then see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really give the example of what this person was going through, but everybody's a little different, whether they have a fragile ego or maybe they have some insecurities, so that when you like criticize it, it seems like you're assaulting them, or they have a fear of failure.
Right.
But I mean, how I approach it is just to try to vocalize that. Like, I want them to know, and it's what I said bluntly to the last time I coached, when I had a list for every player. Like, just call it, hey, your first touch, not good, needs to be worked on. But I made sure to vocalize, like, this is a game. This has nothing to do with you as human beings. You guys, that's a whole different thing, who you are and your character. This is just your ability to play a game where we kick a ball into a goal. So let's not take it too seriously in that light of how you value yourself. And when you look in the mirror, are you able to actually like the person you're seeing? Your ability at this game should not affect it. You can still have a passion and want that to be good. I want to be good at this. I want to get better. But if I don't want to call you out, and then that sends you down the wrong path, because I can only come at it from how I knew. I wasn't able to really accept criticism then, because I was a very self-conscious kid, and if somebody was telling me what I was doing wrong, I was like, it's enforcing that I'm inferior to me.
Right.
And I wanted to make sure
I'm similar.
I wanted to separate that me calling out your ability in a game has nothing to do with that, and you need to realize that. And that's not just that one time. Like, keep reinforcing that over and over again, in the same way that Pep Guardiola is reinforcing. He's explaining these methods, different. Like, these are the tactical things, but he keeps keep explaining his methods so that the tactics sink in. I'm going to keep explaining that I believe that there's a difference, and I'm not coming at you as a person. Obviously, if you're being a toxic teammate and being disruptive, I'm going to call that character out. And it's like, there's something about you that should probably change, or you need to find out what's doing that. But you gotta meet them where they're at. So it's different with every kid. It's going to be hard to really find that out, because you don't know what their family dynamic is. You don't know what they've gone through. But, as long as you're willing to have, you got to have those conversations with them. And, it's a little difficult if they're really young, if they don't really know. They might not know how to articulate it. So you can just repetition, and just keep telling them that you're there for them. And hey,
it's all about just doing it and doing it.
It's okay to fail. I just want them to know it's okay to fail. Like, hey, mistakes are okay.
Well, that's also another thing that Pep had said. It's like, I don't care. He said, I don't care if you make mistakes. Yeah. Just always give 100%. It's like, as long as we're trying, like, that's what matters. I have a few things at 65 if you don't.
Yeah, man. All I had was at the bottom about the title.
Okay. Yeah. I just had underlined, a team is a living entity. Some players develop and improve, like Shaqiri, the Cube, who is impressing the coach with his work, or Højbjerg and Boateng, who seem to soak up every little detail. But there are others who disengage, either in terms of performance or their attitude. A team is not a homogeneous group. Now, between you and I don't really know what homogeneous means. So if we could look that up real quick for also other people who might not know.
I don't know what the word is for something that, like, I kind of understand, but I can't define. Consisting of parts that are the same, uniform in structure or composition. or of the same or similar nature or kind.
Okay.
Consisting of terms of the same degree or elements of the same dimension. But that's in mathematics.
Right. So, like, basically saying a team is not a group of identical players consisting of all the same things.
Right.
Further down on 65, I have a little bit later in the bigger paragraph about middle section. Later, they agreed to include an escape clause in the player's contract, and we're talking about not Thiago.
Yep.
Oh yeah, we are talking about Thiago.
It is Thiago.
They agreed to include an escape clause in the player's contract, which detailed that if Thiago played less than a stated minimum number of minutes per year at Barcelona, his rescission fee would drop hugely to 18 million euros instead of a prohibitive 90 million figure in his original contract, which is like a huge difference.
Especially then.
Right.
I think that's before the Pogba deal that broke everything. For 100 million. Or maybe it was after that, and that's why it was 90.
It's just crazy to me that if like a player is not getting a certain amount of playing minutes, that the price will change that much.
Well, I think that was specific to him. I haven't really heard that for anybody else.
Right, yeah, it very well could be, but I do get the feeling that there are other players out there that have maybe seen something like this, and maybe even at Barcelona too, where it's like, you know, if you're not playing, like you're not going to be as worth as much. But yeah, especially for a player like Thiago, especially since you and I have seen him play a lot, especially coming through Bayern, like he was such a special player to watch. And he did pretty well under Pep. But yeah, in just hindsight, it's just like, wow, Thiago was only really he was only going to be worth 18 million instead of 90. That's crazy. Further down on 65, at the end of today's training session, Arjen Robben will explain what he sees at as Bayern's main virtue. We don't have a Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo, but we do have the right collective mentality. We also have quality players who stand out. When we attack, we are always looking for the next goal, or our defense is compact and coordinated. That is our strength. And I guess that's also part of the reason why I was such a Bayern fan at that point.
Makes
because
sense.
I really felt watching them, I really felt that was their biggest thing. Like, I noticed Robin and Frank Ribery just like how they just fucking just owned the wings, but not in like long 80-meter sprints like Guardiola didn't want them to do.
Right.
They were super effective and productive in staying higher and getting that ball from their six, and then that's when they go and attack with just incredible speed and ability, and it was so great to watch. And anybody that has seen Arjen Robben play and his infamous cut into like inside and then shot with his left is just,
you know it's coming, but you can't stop
Right.
it.
It's his greatest weapon, and it's crazy how consistent it was. That's all I have for that page.
Guardiola approaches the bench, visibly pleased with the team's work. That's how Barca trained that first year. That's how they trained the first year. Like beasts, he repeats. It just isn't possible to always be at the top of the mountain. Usain Bolt, Roger Federer. We thought they would never stop winning, but it's not possible. It's just not possible. His response evokes that of Garry Kasparov in New York. Impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Despite being champions, Bayern are hungry. Desperately hungry. It's as if they have not yet made it to the top of the mountain. Right now, we are all hungry. The players, because they have a new coach and new concepts to learn, and they want to win playing a little bit better than they have in the past. Me, because I want to win with a different set of players. Let's see if we can do it. And we're seeing that now. It is hard to stay at the top. As we began the episode with addressing his losing streak that he's on right now, that he has not encountered yet. It's hard to stay at the top.
In the top league.
In the top league, and that's why I am kind of confident that as we get into the beginning of Jurgen Klopp and their rivalry starting, it starts in the Bundesliga and follows into the Premier League, that it helped him stay at the top.
Having that friction.
Having an extra obsession to worry about a team that is almost as perfect as yours.
Right.
It's like, I thought maybe we could win the league and, we had 4 losses. It would be fine. Oh, we can only lose once if we're going to win the Premier League this year.
Right.
It's going to push you over the edge and keep you on your toes.
Yeah. I mean, I would want that. I would want that competitive edge, so that it's also helping me do my job when I'm coaching. So I don't know. That makes sense to me. I just had a little comment on that last paragraph there, and I just was like, what a collective youthful feeling of pursuing new knowledge to become something else and stay on top. Just how kind of inspirational, to think about how, Pep's coming in with new ideas, new style, and his players are just open-minded enough to still work in so intensely, because Pep keeps calling them beasts when they train, still keeping up that intensity of work and being able to take in new ideas, new style, and put those two things together. And I think they have fun doing that. It doesn't really say that in the pages, but I think, at least for me, when I learn new stuff and I can put it into practice, that's fun for me. Yeah, I love doing that.
For sure.
So I think there's a little bit of that there.
Chapter 11. Who are our unstoppable guys? Ribery and Robin.
They sure were, man.
This is July 8th, 2013. Pep now has a clear mental picture of the lineup with which he would like to start the season. Noor in goal, Lam and Alaba supporting him as fullbacks. Rafinha is also performing very well in training, would be a great alternative. Javi Martinez, Boateng, and Dante are the 3 players who will have to share the 2 central defensive positions. In front of them, Schweinsteiger will slot in as the only dedicated holding midfielder. While it's certainly true that he did his best work last season as part of a double pivot, Guardiola thinks that his vice captain is fully capable of performing at the same level solo. Beside him, he'll have Cruz and Thiago, 2 attacking midfielders with tremendous creative skill. Thiago, of course, has not even signed yet. If, in the end, he doesn't make it to Bayern, then Mario Götze could take his place. In attack, Guardiola has a number of options, although all of them, of course, include Ribery. In the coming months, however, Pep will come to appreciate the massive gulf between the lineup he is considering now in early July and the reality of events as they unfold. It's pretty wild of the coup Bayern pulled off in getting Mario Götze, and even in the early months, he's not in the starting 11. I know he's injured, but he's hypothetically thinking about Schweinsteiger isn't fit yet, and he's in how he's dreaming about it, how they would play as Schweinsteiger's in there, and it's Cruz and Thiago, the guy who's not even on the team yet. It's not Kroos and Götze, it's Cruz Thiago.
I think he's relying on his familiarity of Thiago already.
Yeah, for sure.
With Götze being still so young and being the Wunder kid in Germany.
But I mean, Thiago is just a Wunder kid of Spain. He's young
Which
too.
Pep has seen, though.
I know.
He's brought him up.
Right.
Talks about how he brought him up. But yeah, I mean, just, I don't know. I think I sent you that article that Goetze had written.
Yeah.
About kind of like what he was dealing with as a player with that transition and like the aftermath, and
right.
Like that was hard, a decision for him,
right.
But it was more along the lines of like he wanted to learn like more new things from Pep, which was like, okay, yeah, I mean, when a really good coach, Pep Guardiola, calls you over, he offers you to come over. Right. It's just like, yeah, I guess you got to take it, you know.
If Klopp was the Klopp of Liverpool already at the time, he probably would have stayed.
Yeah.
Not taking anything away from Klopp, but he was new at the heights of winning. But Pep is he's the guru, man. Like, I want to study under the best. Like,
right.
It makes sense. Like, I understand it. I'm not trying to come at him for anything.
No, well, he just got so much ridicule for it.
Yeah, I know.
It's just, I don't know. I think it's unfair.
It's tough when you're from the place, though.
I know. It goes both ways so hard.
That's the criticism that I understand, though, too. It's like, I mean, you're Dortmund, though. Even if the guru calls, it's not like, it's one thing if you came from Bayern and that area, and then signed for Dortmund young, and then the home calls you. Your home calls you home, but you left.
You left home. Yeah, when they were doing well too.
Right. But anyway, amongst other things, within the next 6 months, by the end of 2013, the team will have suffered a virtual epidemic of injuries. Only 4 players will make it to Christmas injury-free. Reserve goalkeeper Tom Stark. I mean, that's not even a thing that your reserve goalkeeper made it injury-free. No offense. But midfielder... Well, Boateng's up. Did they have Kevin Prince Boateng on the team? I don't know why it says midfielder.
Wait, what?
It says midfielder Boateng.
On 68? Where?
Yeah. On 67, the first page of 11. It's probably just a typo. Reserve goalkeeper, Tom Stark. Unless it's just saying reserve goalkeeper. Yeah. It says midfielder, Boateng. He's a defender. He's a center back. He's the guy who had his legs broken by Messi. Defender Van Butten and the forward Thomas Muller. The 20 remaining players will have fallen victim to injuries. Some of them, such as Neuer, Mandzukic, and Alaba, will get off lightly. But for Schweinsteiger, Thiago, Robben, the damage will be far more serious. And that's without even mentioning Holger Bastuber, who will find himself spending his second year trying to recover from injury. This situation will ruin Guardiola's plans, oblige him to reinvent players to cover certain positions, and force him to change many tactical decisions. All of this will make it much more difficult for his players to assimilate new game plans. Things will move much more slowly as a result. Like I'm saying about Man City, he's done this before, so he's figuring it out right now with what he has at his disposal.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, that doesn't mean he's going to win either. It's like he's doing, I mean, even if you watch the highlights of the losses just recently, like Man City's still in the game. It's just not it's not what people are used to. So,
right. So it goes into talk a little bit about his time at Barcelona. Barca, Iniesta, and Xavi dominated down the middle, where Messi would then destroy the opposition defense. At Bayern, Guardiola sees things slightly differently. Things were a little easier at Barcelona. We make an overload in the midfield, or a right back makes an overlapping run, and then Messi does the rest. We don't have that now.
He had the building blocks already in place.
So he had to figure out who are our unstoppable guys. Now it's the wide guys. So he's already kind of slightly digressing from his original idea of a false nine. He might still use it, but maybe it won't be the spearhead because Messi was the false nine. So obviously, if Messi's your guy, he's going to be much more involved. It wasn't so much about the wide guys. But now maybe because Ribery was talking about being in the middle, but now he is seeing maybe we shouldn't get rid of our strengths here. We have to use that weapon. We have to be superior down the middle of the midfield, but open up with the width with diagonal passes. That means we have to push the whole team upfield in order to release Robben and Ribery, because they can't be dropping deep to start the play. He will have to explain this over and over again. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Within 2 weeks of arriving, it has already become the coach's obsession. Ribery and Robben must no longer be making, as you were saying, 80-meter runs up and down the wing to attack, defend, and restart the play. If they are the ones restarting the play so deep, they'll have both the opposition midfielder and fullback in front of them to get away from. That makes it really difficult. However, if we set a really high line and establish our central defenders where the midfield would normally be, then it will limit our opponent's scope to double up on the wingers. We will convert each play into 1-versus-1 situations. In that type of situations, our guys will do the very best, and I'd back them to get goals. They can also cross excellently, and we've got top quality finishers to put those chances away. At Barca, Messi did the destroying down the middle of the pitch. At Bayern, it will be Ribery and Robben, but from the wings. I mean, dude, this is what Salah does all day, every day. And obviously, Arne Slot is a little bit more of a Pep Guardiola. And somehow he's getting Salah into positions to get it done. Now, I think they come a little bit deeper than how Bayern was getting set up. They help defend a little bit and play out of the back.
Yeah.
But he's still getting Salah in one-on-one situations, and that's all you want.
Yeah.
That's all you want, and he's excelling this year.
I like how simple it was for Pep to just kind of like ask himself, like, who are my unstoppable guys?
Right.
And the fact that he didn't change them around like into different positions because they were unstoppable. It was because they were unstoppable in those positions that he kept them there and adapted his own style to those strengths, which kind of plays into that quote of like how your players make your team, like your players make the style, and not the other way around. And just how Pep easily just kind of adapted to that just by asking that simple question of like, all right, who's the guy? Who are the guys that are gonna go all in all the time, like who are gonna take on their 1v1s and try and win them? And I mean, if you've ever watched Ribery and Robben, like they're definitely unstoppable, man. They're absolutely fast. They're absolutely dangerous, and playing against them must be a nightmare.
And another example of Pep Guardiola, he can adapt his playing style, which I didn't even know this. So they're comparing Barcelona as to how Bayern are going to play again. And at Barcelona, apparently, 4 crosses per match would be a high number.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Which I guess you think about it, if Messi's your false nine, you're not going to cross the ball into him.
Right, yeah.
But at Bayern, there'll be games where we cross more than 20 times because we simply must feed Muller and Mandzukic. That makes sense. You saw City adapt between an Aguero type where you can send some crosses in, but he's not a big guy. Or when Aguero left, they kind of had to go back to the false nine, and you'd even see De Bruyne up there sometimes before they brought in Haaland. Now Haaland's there. Now it's passes in behind, and when they set up in the other opposition's half, they're crossing the ball in because now they have a target. They got to feed it.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows how to adapt. So he has strikers now, proper, regular strikers. Pep's big challenge is to successfully create chances from wide positions. but still keep order in the middle of the pitch to protect against the opposition's counterattack. To be aware of where the ball will drop if it is cleared from a cross. Thus, attack the second ball too, not just the first cross. Now, they have to work on this. And this is him working hand in hand with Buenaventura, who's going to make a physical training session that will reflect the tactics.
Mm-hmm.
We'll create a special training routine to recreate this complicated pattern that Pep wants to achieve, establishing superiority in midfield, opening up on the wings for the guys who can destroy the opposition, finishing on the volley inside the penalty area, and at the same time being properly placed to cut out the counterattack. And I've seen a few teams do this, and it's when you get fully like set up in their half and you're able to send in crosses and they're not able to build out of the back, or when they get a header clear, it falls right into your midfielders. And being very precise if you're going to make a midfield run into the box, making sure that there's cover and you guys are all tightly in a formation. I remember seeing it a lot, how Thomas Tuchel had Chelsea playing when they had they would play with like three at the back, but they would set up shop in the other team's half, and it's going left to right, crosses going to the box, and they would just have it there, and it's just an onslaught on the opposition's penalty box. And it was any time they'd win the ball back, it was just, and you're there to win it back. And other teams play like that, but
I think there's a huge underrated like tactic behind the anticipation of the rebound if the cross comes in and it comes back out. Like, players all the time just want to be as high as possible, as close to the goal as possible, so that when it comes in, they can touch it in. And when you don't have that midfielder who's posting up outside the 18 for those balls to come back out, or you don't have a structure with your formation to anticipate those rebounds, like, you're just missing out on free shots and just balls back into the box. It's something that I feel like I only see sometimes, and everybody else is just like, no, just cross it into the box willy-nilly. I'm just like, okay, what about after that? What do we do? Yeah.
So the main exercise they did involved 3 men playing the ball out from the back, sometimes with the fullback tight with them, sometimes pushed forward. In front of them, the pivot and 2 attacking midfielders, plus 3 forwards. The attacking moves needed a diagonal pass, breaking through the opposition line. At the end of the move, our attacking midfielder should be on the edge of the box. We place one of the dummies from a free kick wall in place that we wanted him to end up, so that any counterattack could be snuffed out. It was a curious routine to stage, and obviously they're just going to keep repeating that, but the goal is, it meant reaching the opposition's penalty box in numbers and all at the same time, and always vigilant not to suddenly be caught on the counter. If it's already tough to coordinate a good, effective balance attack, imagine how hard it is to add in the fact that we needed to have half our minds on what would happen if the attack broke down, and how to be prepared for the opposition to counterattack. And they're being especially aware of this because they're in Germany now, and counterattack football is hot. So they can't be caught on the counterattack all the time.
Yeah, it's also just smart to train your team on countering that instead of just falling into the counterattack river.
Then it just kind of gets into Mario Gomez's move is being finalized, and he says his goodbyes, and they're finalizing Thiago's deal, but they want him. Is he going to be in time for the German Super Cup? Because he wants to play him. Doesn't want to play. I think I have some of that underlined, so I'll wait for that. But that concludes Chapter 11. Chapter 12, they'll climb that mountain 10 times in a row. July 9th, 2013. Guardiola has never considered himself a creative genius or an inventor. Instead, he has defined himself as an ideas thief. When he reached the top as a coach, he still felt he had more to learn. So he studied the strategies of the best. Ideas belong to everyone, and I have stolen as many as I could. Which I really like that he was admitting this.
Mm-hmm.
So he stole from Cruyff, Arrigo Sacchi, who's another name we've seen in Jurgen Klopp's book, who Jurgen's looking at, and Ralf Rangnick was looking at, and Wolfgang Frank was looking at.
Yeah.
Cesar Luis Menotti, Argentina's World Cup winning coach in 1978. You have Sacchi's heir at Milan, Fabio Capello.
Who I'm not super familiar with. Are you?
I'm not as familiar with his tactics, but I know
The
that
success.
he was at Real Madrid at a time. He was the guy. I think he was the last time England went foreign. They're foreign now. Thomas Tuchel's in charge for the national team.
For England's national team?
Yeah, Thomas Tuchel's the coach now.
Oh my god.
You didn't know that?
No. How did I miss that? That's crazy.
So they've gone foreign.
Wow.
Yeah, they've gone foreign again. But the last time they did it was Fabio Capello, and that was the 2010 World Cup, which didn't work out.
Okay. Interesting.
Because he stayed with the 4-4-2 when everybody's like, why is Michael Carrick not at the anchor of Lampard and Gerrard?
Right.
That controversy.
Okay.
He studied the Dutch, the Italians, the innovation of the Hungarians. Marcelo Bielsa.
Marcelo Bielsa.
Juanma Leo. And the passion of the Scots.
That was a wild card for me.
Yeah. But, he's studying everybody, and everybody has something to offer. It's a big melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a humble thing. Like, you can't think that you know it all. You're going to have to find out what people have done, and that's how innovation works. You don't just... Some people have an idea out of nothing, but you got to, as they say, it's not a slight to stand on the shoulders of giants, but
right.
It doesn't take away when you innovate, because then somebody's going to innovate off of your innovation.
Yeah. I like that Pep was admitting his alloyness, that he is just made up of other metals.
So Frank Ribery and Arjen Robben are telling them to he's telling them to limit their runs to a maximum of 40 meters, as we've heard. It meant eliminating the deficiencies of a movement and reconstructing it using different principles, while still maintaining its core purpose. He still wanted a penetrating attack down the wing, quick and direct, but it would be more brief, more intense, and starting from a greater point of advantage. However, first he'd have to ensure the team that they were moving as a group toward the middle of the pitch. We'd like Ribery not to drop back any further than the center line, confirms Manuel Estarte on the morning of July 9th. The Bayern players are training hard despite the fact that they are due to play Brescia in the fairly important friendly this evening. So they're trying to get these new tactics ready to go for a friendly.
Mm-hmm. And Ribery is 100% in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it just keeps reiterating that a lot of the star players are ready to give 100%, even if some of the things aren't just not clicking just yet. The morning training session is brutally intense, as all of this season's trainings will be. Its purpose is to train the team in defensive organization, correcting them where necessary. Pep is passionate about improving the team's defensive skills. This is one of his main characteristics. Guardiola is no romantic idealist when it comes to football, nor is he I don't even know what that word is. He's not a fool, I'll just say that. As he has been claimed to be, he is a single-minded pragmatist. Above all else, Pep wants to win, and in all sports, even when you're seeing high-flying offense, a good team is always balanced by a dominant defense. and you're wondering, like, why does this team keep winning? Well, they keep scoring goals. I challenge you to look at how many they conceded. Because even though Man City was known for its attacking, if you would look at, they're not winning right now. Well, you know what they're doing? They're conceding goals. It's not working right now. So the defense is probably one of the first things he's trying to fix right now. And he was asked about it. You work on defensive strategy most. And Pep's response to that was, because it's absolutely essential if I want to attack a lot. Defensive organization is the cornerstone of everything else I want to achieve in my football. I mean, I knew he would organize them defensively, but it was cool. Like, I haven't ever heard him articulate the importance of the defending. So to all you defenders out there, you make it that the attackers can attack and keep attacking.
Hold on real quick.
Yeah.
An aesthete. A person who has or affects to have a special appreciation of art and beauty.
That makes sense.
I don't know. I think he likes the beautiful game, so maybe that's not the correct word.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Throughout the season, there will be dozens of sessions like the one he just finished in the Arco Stadium, during which the team has practiced facing crosses from fullbacks and defending against corners. They have all also covered how to cope with the long ball down the middle to the penalty box and how to defend when the opponents attack in greater numbers. That's one thing I know, that Pep knows how to get them organized, even when you have greater numbers.
Yeah, I've seen City do it a lot. Just watching them play. Only a few times, really. You just know that they know how to, when they get back, they know exactly where to be and what to do. And I mean, as a coach, like that, of course you want that. It's amazing to watch, and you know that your team knows what to do. I have a little bit underlined on the next page.
Go for it.
It's pretty difficult to spend 90 minutes concentrating and playing well.
Yeah.
Whilst thinking about the moves you have to make and where you have to be, like I said earlier. But when you're caught up in the heat of the moment, like it's, like you go into the game having a plan, or you go into a fight having a plan. You get punched in the face, and then all of a sudden that plan is like it's floating in the wind. So trying to do both of those things at the same time, difficult, like it says. And that's why training is just that much more important. Like when you go to training, when players go to training, if they're not listening to the coach about the preparation, about the plan, of course, things are going to look a little silly when the game comes around on the weekend, and, your team goes out to play, they get punched in the face, and then they're all a little, scattered and disorganized. And it's just like, guys, we have practice things that we're not seeing. Just because we got scored on at least one time, that doesn't mean we just disassociate, disorganize, and stop playing to the potential. That's probably the most frustrating thing. One of the most frustrating things, just watching that stuff happen. It's just like, guys, this is why we do the things that we do. It's why I keep repeating the same things as the fundamentals about, just about how, that great equation of space equals time and time equals quality. If you are scanning for the pressure, the support, and the space, you're going to be able to play simply. It's going to be easy. But if we get scored on, that doesn't mean we stop doing those things.
Right.
It's just a matter of like, okay, like, especially if there's a goal early on, you have time. Have time to keep doing those things. Just because they're not working and we got scored on doesn't mean they won't continue to work later on.
And it's having that characteristic that all these teams that ever have had any kind of comebacks or
Mm-hmm.
like it's why Real Madrid had so many 90th minute like winners. It was why
Right.
Leverkusen was doing it last year in the 90th minute, multiple goals down. It wasn't. There's a little bit of magic that gets captured in football that's kind of unexplainable, but it's having.
Well, it goes into your favorite game with Liverpool against Milan.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
It's that favorite game.
But if you have that characteristic of we're gonna keep going for 90 minutes no matter what, that's what brings about those things. Yeah, sometimes maybe you got to change something, but the teams that I normally fear, if I like want that team to lose, and if it's Man City or if it's Real Madrid or if it's Barcelona, and I'm just maybe it's a random team playing them and the random team scores and they're up 1-0, it's like I may be happy in the moment, but I know I'm like there's so much more to do.
Yeah.
There's so much more to do because they're going to keep they're not stopping.
Yeah.
You've seen it time and time again. Like, yep, City's going to keep coming. They're going to keep coming.
Which is why that episode in This Is Football about chance and just covering the game of Bayern playing Chelsea in the Champions League final is all the more crazy because like Bayern, they're interviewing the Chelsea players and Juan Mata and Mateo, who was the interim coach.
Right.
And they're just talking about how Bayern is just like this like mental wall. If they don't waver, they don't get wiggly when the shit is hitting the fan.
Right.
That playing against that is just like, oh man, this is going to be a grind.
Yeah.
But when you go into the statistics, it's just like, yeah, Chelsea, they had a lot of disadvantages, but they also kept playing the game. Like they went down 1-0, and then Juan Mata's like, no, Drogba, like we have to keep going, we have to keep playing, and then they have a corner, and then kicks it into Drogba, and Drogba has this magical moment of disbelief in his own goal, just like I can't believe it. Anyway, one of my favorite moments in football history, and anybody that has Amazon Prime should watch this show because it's
absolutely. Good. And right below it is Pep's just reiterating that it's not going to be easy because that concentration we're talking about is not easy. Like it
needs practice.
You gotta build that up, and that's why you train hard for sure. It goes into a little bit of how Pep likes to have a tighter knit group of people, a little less. Doesn't want to have any more than 20 players in his squad if he can help it. He likes a small group. Within which about 15 or 60 of them can feel like they are or should be starting players. When City was high-flying, man, it didn't matter who was coming off the bench. You're like, oh, good. Mahrez is going off, and Raheem Sterling's coming on. And I know some people might have a bad thought about Raheem Sterling, but there was a time where he was contributing like 20 goals a season, so or for a couple seasons. Like it was just the example that I can think of. Or it was Mahrez when they had Leroy Sané.
Right.
The depth of quality right now is not as good. Phil Foden maybe last year contributed a lot of goals. Yeah. But now when he's not playing, it's a guy they signed from Girona, Savinho. He had a good season at Girona. Hasn't quite found his footing at City. So now you have a guy who's not producing that's having to fill in.
Right.
Grealish had maybe not the goal production, but I thought when they were winning, his contributions from the left wing were actually very good. His hold up play and keeping the ball was excellent.
I mean, it goes into that Pep statistic of playing how many games and only having 13 goals.
Absolutely, but Grealish's productivity has gone down, and he's having to play more and maybe not playing to his best. So the people who would make the argument that I'm in the 11, that's gone down right now at City, and you can see that the success is not as consistent right now. A lot of kids have to play because people are injured. They're not necessarily beating out somebody, but have to play because we don't have somebody.
Yeah.
Gundogan has to be the pivot. That's not his position because nobody else he's trusting to do it.
Right. He would be the player to put Pep would put there.
But that's who they just put there, and they lost 4-0. So
Wow. Yeah.
there's problems and not as many solutions at the moment. There's not the 16 starters that they had before.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I know he can solve that problem in an off season. Just how Jurgen Klopp did it, man. Rebuilt the midfield in one off season, didn't break the bank, and look at what Arne Slot's doing with it now, man.
Mm-hmm.
We're off and flying. We got depth. We're rotating. People are able to, if we have the odd injury, which is the only thing happening at Liverpool, the odd injury, the next guy up is quality. And then that guy gets healthy. So when the next odd injury happens, like maybe McAllister gets a knock and Curtis Jones comes in and everything's fine.
Yeah, it is a good system to have, for sure.
Because Diego Jota was starting in the beginning of the season, and he got a knock, and now Nunez is in, and he can still do a shift as much as, rightly so, his finishing is criticized. He's not so bad that the quality of play drops. And the goals are still... He doesn't stop goal-scoring chances from being created. Yeah, maybe he doesn't finish the ones that he needs to. That is a critique. That is valid. But he's still a quality footballer. And the level of play... It was similar to City when they had Gabriel Jesus on the team. When he was the 9, it wasn't as good as when it was Aguero or maybe somebody else. But he's a quality footballer, so the style of play and making the chances still was happening, so the wingers were getting more goals. The goals were still found, and sometimes he'll finish his chance.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's also part of the reason why Chelsea right now have signed so many players.
Yeah, maybe.
Just to kind of have that rotation of like, all right, let's get these players in, let's build them up, and then if anything happens to our our starting bench, like we'll have players to keep that consistency of play to stay in the top 4.
But nothing is set in stone just yet. But there's not enough room for everybody who's on the roster right now. Negotiations to sell Luis Gustavo are already in place, but even so, Pep is still going over and over the possible player combinations in his ideal Bayern team. On paper, there just isn't room for all the players in his squad. However, reality is just about to bite and rid him of these particular preoccupations. When the injuries hit, Pep's problems won't be how to use all his players, but how to piece together a competitive team. Not once in the whole of 2013 will all his first team players be fit or available at the same time. It's the downside of managing a short squad. So it isn't it isn't always easy to have not a huge squad, as you just pointed out. Chelsea doesn't have to do that if you have so many people that are pretty quality. If you can get them in a cohesive unit. The problem I would say you have as a Chelsea, when everybody gets healthy, then the minutes will make people unhappy.
Yeah.
And then you'll have to sell or go on loan, which is kind of their model.
Well, which is probably part of the plan, too. Yeah.
So at the end of this training session, a single image attracts the attention of Pep and his staff. Ribery and Robin are knocking the ball back and forwards, away from everyone else, as if they're hanging out on the bench. Someone mentions that only a few months ago, in spring 2012, they came to blows in the Allianz Arena during the Bayern-Real Madrid Champions League semifinal. Now they are laughing and joking on the Trentino pitch. I didn't remember that, so...
No, me neither. I just thought they were always best buddies.
Yeah, apparently not. I just thought that was cool. It's what you want to see. You want to see growth. You want to see people getting over themselves.
Yeah.
In the event they won't manage to comply with his instructions during the first half, Pep will keep issuing orders. Boateng should hold the defense line better. Cruz should impose the tempo of the play more firmly. Shaqiri should widen the pitch right out of the touchline and use his runs to add depth against a tough but not excessively dangerous opponent. This is the Italian side that they're playing against here. Bayern win 3-0 with goals from Müller, Kroos, and Kirchhoff. But Guardiola will be far from satisfied and will end the game even clear about how the work he'll have to do if they're to realize his aspirations. So 3-0 is probably not what they wanted, but it was a Serie A B side. But they want to be prepared to beat Dortmund in the German Super Cup, which we are nearing.
Yeah, he has a lot of anxiety about it just because of all the injuries.
Now I know I don't have as much in this chapter here, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think it can be summarized pretty.
I have a couple things, but not too many because
it's kind of leading up to the game against Dortmund a little bit.
Like I said, I have some, but this chapter goes into a lot of old Barcelona drama that I don't really care about.
Well, I found it interesting just because I didn't know Pep had such. Well, I didn't know that the relationship between him and the president of the club had such a toxic thing.
Yeah, I know in one of the previous chapters we kind of talked about it went into a big background of the craziness of Barcelona.
But even in this chapter, it was just like, oh wow, it was bad. It was bad.
I start in the beginning though, because it's just about football here. Because he's still trying to figure out who's gonna play, and it talks about how he's dedicated a bunch of time to Højbjerg over everybody else. He's this diamond in the rough. He's going to be the next Sergio Busquets, but there's a little bit of doubt in Guardiola's mind. He wasn't sure that it would be reasonable to put the lad to the test in these circumstances, dropping him into the Westfalenstadion without a parachute, facing a strong Borussia Dortmund desperate to have revenge for their defeat in the Champions League final. Didn't think he should drop the 17-year-old kid into that. Maybe he should have, but he doesn't.
I'm not really sure. I get Pep's sentiment about looking out for the lad because it's the same way with Jurgen Klopp and kind of protecting Mario Götze with making sure that they're putting these young players in the right environment so that it doesn't stunt anything and that they don't get ridiculed for playing such an important game with so much weight and then having them kind of have a fallout because they know how talented and know that their potential is high. So maybe it's just maybe he could have handled it. I don't know.
Yeah. But this chapter is titled, I told Rossell I would be going 6,000 kilometers away from him. So I'll just read the statement that Pep made.
Well, before you do that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I just wanted to touch on a little bit about their game when they returned from Italy.
Okay.
Immediately after their return from Italy on July 14th, Bayern played a friendly in Rostock. It was a benefit match for Hansa, an ancient and historic German club which was struggling with serious financial problems. A year before, Uli Hoeneß had agreed the fixture as a fundraiser to help Hansa renew their federation license, which qualified them to play in the German third division. The fundraising exercise was a success, and 28,000 fans turned up at the DKB Arena, contributing almost €1 million to the Rostock club's funds. I had that underlined just because I thought that was a nice bit of a little bit of culture there, but also just kind of how Bayern aren't always evil. They have done some bad things, but it was really cool for me just how they were looking out for a fellow like domestic club. They're just like, no, like we want teams to keep playing. They want them to keep them around, and just maybe there was more behind that than just what I think just by reading from this bit. But I thought that was a really cool little saving grace just from like,
fair point.
oh, let's do a fundraiser. Like, we want you guys to keep playing football.
And after that game, the signing of Thiago is confirmed.
Yeah.
But the statement that Pep made is, during my sabbatical, I told President Sandro Rosell that I would be going 6,000 kilometers away from him. All I asked was that he leaves me in peace, but he has chosen not to do that. He has broken his promise. I did my time and then I left. It wasn't their responsibility. I was the one who decided to go, and I went 6,000 kilometers away. Let them get on with their own business now. I hope they're happy with the players they've got and with the things that they're doing. I wish them all the luck in the world because in some small way their success is my success. I don't need to tell you what the club means to me, but this year they have crossed the line too many times. And apparently this has just been a build-up of things, and he just needed to get it out in the open. And
yeah, especially considering they're signing Thiago from Barcelona too.
Yeah.
Just that ties into it quite a bit. Definitely, I like how modest he still is about it, just because like he's just like, I'm tired of this. Let's let it go and just kind of exist in the past. And he doesn't want bad beef with them. He just wants it to be just everything's fine. Drama.
So Thiago has finally arrived, and we talked that there was a history there because obviously he came from Barcelona. Guardiola had propelled Thiago through the youth ranks, promoting him to the B team at 16 and then to the first team at 18. He had complete confidence in the player, just as he was doing now with Højbjerg, but spent many hours honing his rough diamond. With Thiago, he had focused on defensive concepts. Now that he has Thiago, if Thiago held up physically, he would be starting pivot in the Super Cup. So he's found who he wants to replace Højbjerg and not throw that guy to the wolves.
You're right.
With Thiago as pivot, Lahm and Kroos took up the other two midfield positions. The captain brought defensive power, while Kroos added his creative flair. The trio played brilliantly, and Bayern destroyed Borussia Mönchengladbach 5-1. As long as Thiago stayed fit, Pep had his lineup for the Dortmund match in a week's time. But things don't go as planned.
No, they have to face a match against Barca in the Allianz Arena even before the game.
3 days before the cup game.
And, obviously Pep is not too thrilled about this game already. So it's, even people nobody at Barcelona was particularly enthused by the prospect either, just from what Pep and the president of the club have already been talking about, and it's just sad timing. But yeah, I wasn't going to go deep into it, but
yeah, in the event, the friendly was completely straightforward. The consequences were, however, anything but. Bayern won 2-0. Well, that's cool. By denying Barcelona barely any chance to develop their game, but on Thursday morning, Guardiola learned the cost.
However,
Neuer and Ribery were injured. The goalkeeper had some pain in his abductor muscle, and the striker had taken a painful kick to the leg. Neither would make the Dortmund game. Oh, joy. He spends the whole night studying Jurgen Klopp's Borussia, as he always does before a match. For 2.5 days, he analyzes his opponents down to the last detail and looks for weaknesses he can exploit. His analytical approach is similar to that of Magnus Carlsen, world chess champion, He likes to study the thinking behind every chess move without using a computer. He then reaches his own conclusions and instructs his assistants to find alternatives using powerful computers. In just the same way, Pep prefers to scrutinize the information himself before consulting his assistants. Carlos Blanchard and his team of analysts, only once he has examined his rivals in depth does he exchange ideas with the technical team. The final conclusions are usually a combination of both parties at work. So he's hard at work. He's got injuries. Got to figure out what he's going to do.
I like that last bit there, how he said, when I pointed out the similarity with Carlsen, Pep seemed pleasantly surprised with the comparison and said, I'm getting more and more interested in chess.
I mean, he's playing chess. That's what being a manager
I know, but
is.
It was just like kind of like a small joke of just
for sure.
I'm getting interested in chess.
A little joke and a callback. So he's missing Nora and Ribery, Javi Martinez and Dante, Götze and Luis Gustavo, and Schweinsteiger still limping about. He decides to go on the attack. He still has doubts and swithers between Rummenigge's words, we need patience, and Sommer's, we need passion. Patience and passion, Guardiola's two main weapons. Which credo will his first appearance of the new Bayern reflect? He opts for passion. When in doubt, go back to basics. Attack, attack, attack. He's going to move Philipp Lahm from the midfield and return him to the right back. He will play in Dortmund with as many forwards as possible. But it is going to be a huge risk. So now we are on to the final chapter of the episode. Well, I'm not going to read the title. It spoils the result. But this is Dortmund, July 27th, 2013. Pep has Valentina in his arms. The little girl hugs her dad tightly. She seems to sense the gravity of the situation. The Bayern players are already on the team bus waiting for their boss. His white shirt bathed in sweat to come aboard. Temperatures in Dortmund are Mediterranean, 38 degrees centigrade, and Guardiola has just lost his first official match. After a 4-2 win, the German Super Cup belongs to Borussia. 10 meters away, Jurgen Klopp, the victorious coach, goes by triumphantly as volcanic as ever, as we well know.
Mm-hmm. I like that we chose this book after Bring the Noise.
Yeah.
It's a lot of good parallels.
For sure. And the author goes in kind of comparing, is Klopp going to be the Mourinho, because Pep had a nice rivalry with him when they were Barcelona and Real Madrid.
Mm-hmm.
Dynamic going on, and all the Super Clásicos that were going on. I'd say Klopp's a bit different from Mourinho, but definitely passionate and loud.
Yeah.
You can do those two qualities.
Yeah. And just to give a little bit more context about the match on page 85, every single ticket in Dortmund's Signal Iduna Park has been sold for this one-off match, as they usually are for games in almost every stadium in the country. 195 countries are televising the final, and both coaches have spruced themselves up for the occasion. They wish each other well at this, the start of a long and friendly rivalry, which recently ended.
Yeah.
Sad.
I skip over to 87 because it does start with the result, but then gets into things that happened during the game. It's all sufficient to confirm that Dortmund remain rock hard at home, notwithstanding the fact that they get a gift from the visitors after barely 5 minutes. Nor's replacement, Tom Stark, is the guilty party, and the 1-0 lead signifies that Klopp's team can now dig in, switch to a 4-4-2, and allow Bayern the ball. Try to channel them wide, then wait for the opportunity to counterattack, as we well know.
Mm-hmm.
losing the ball is not a big deal for Klopp.
Mm-hmm.
It's just now we can win the ball back.
Just to segue into that, Borussia don't mind not having the ball.
Mm-hmm.
On the contrary, they are quite happy to bide their time and then pounce. They don't need the ball at their feet because of the fact that they dominate available space so intelligently. They're not embarrassed to appear overrun. The more they are forced back, the better they seem to defend, which was a great observation and way to say that. Because, if you had been listening to the previous book, we are very familiar with how Jurgen Klopp has been building that into that system, into its blood.
Yeah, for sure. So it's halftime. Klopp goes into the dressing room looking like he thinks he's playing better than Guardiola. After halftime, the Bayern coach switches his attacking players. He sends Robin to the left, Mandzukic to the center attack, and Shaqiri to the right. This apparently minor adjustment changes everything. Thiago and Lahm start to turn the tide, and the equalizer comes from an intricate pass from Thiago to his captain, who crosses for a Robin header. Bayern have equalized. They seem to have reached a turning point at last. But the illusion is short-lived. In barely 180 seconds, the scoreboard goes from 1-0 to 3-1. Leaving the men from Munich humiliated and emotionally broken. Kroos is slow. Van Buiten is distraught after he scores an own goal to make it 2-1. Gundogan, a prodigious midfielder, puts the third goal away almost immediately, and suddenly it's all become very tough for Bayern. Guardiola could not have imagined just how hard the game in Dortmund would be. And then it goes into, Thiago's playing the pivot, and one of Thiago's weaknesses is his defensive game. He'll make a pass through the line, and then they'll lose the ball. And he wasn't there for the training sessions where they worked on losing the ball and making sure the counterattack doesn't happen.
Yeah, which is why he needs a bit more time for those defensive concepts.
Right. Thiago's game sums up the challenges that await them. In the Super Cup final, he exploits the cracks in the opponent's defensive brilliantly, but fails to protect his own team. So maybe the guy like Højbjerg, who was there for everything, might have.
Which is fair to say. Yeah. Maybe he would have done a little better in having the ideas.
The match has been played with the passion and intensity hard to match anywhere else in Europe at the stage of the season, and the result has people asking if today marks the start of a new champion's reign. Because 1 year ago in the summer of 2012, Heinek's Bayern hosted Klopp's Borussia to compete for the same Super Cup title. At the same time, Bayern had just missed out on 2 Champions League titles, 2 consecutive Bundesliga trophies, and had lost the last 5 encounters with Dortmund. The last of which had been a bloody 5-2 thrashing. But the men from Munich would end up winning the 2012 Super Cup and march toward their historic treble. So they're using this game to dictate how things are going to go.
Yeah. If only it was that predictable, though,
And then this is where Guardiola learns that German coaches attend post-match press conferences together, and he's mixing words up. He's answering questions that were meant for Klopp, and his mind is elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the joint press conference, Guardiola seems to be brooding on this. He has been slow. It's as if his sabbatical year in New York has reduced the speed of his reactions. This is only the second final he has lost as a coach. The first was the 2011 Copa del Rey against Real Madrid, which is sometimes you lose to Real Madrid. It just happens.
Right.
But he has been sluggish today, a bit like the stiflingly hot weather in Dortmund. And this is where we learned the title. Well, we knew the title, but Guardiola says Borussia deserve to win.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't start off well, but They are moving on from this the moment after the defeat. 3 little kids in a red and white shirts wave goodbye. The journey has begun. And again, as steep and as treacherous as ever.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you start off winning right away, is it like the right kind of build up to what he wanted anyway?
It's like you weren't going to beat Klopp. I'm not saying it couldn't have happened, but Klopp as we've learned, is almost just as obsessive as Pep, and he played with his like starting 11 was all there,
right?
Who has been as ingrained with how they're going to play as Pep wants to get to
for a few years. At this point,
right, and found success, so they're highly confident in how they're playing, and it's not shocking that happened.
No, I mean that's why the 2013-2014 Champions League final was so what it was, because both of those coaches were at their peaks. And it was one of, like, I love going back to watch that game against Bayern in Dortmund. It was just such a thriller, and just, I don't know. It's kind of crazy just how they had beaten everybody else to get there. And just how 2 different styles kind of clash. And nobody really knew it at the time, but it was the 2 big coaches like clashing it out, and made a lot of history. And it was also just kind of like the gateway into the Premier League in the future too. I think.
So maybe now Klopp will have a new rival, because who we talked about last time, who's just arrived at Man United and played his first coached his first game.
Oh, Ruben Amorim.
Because they just met in the Champions League during this 5-game skid where Sporting beat them 4-1 in the Champions League.
Oh, City.
Yeah, he beat City.
Right, yeah.
But he was still coaching at Sporting at that time.
Yeah, I watched the highlights for that game.
Ruben has already got the one off on him, but in my opinion, now he's inherited a worse team.
Yeah.
Who doesn't have a striker that has 24 goals in 19 games.
Well, who is it now?
Who are his strikers now?
Yeah.
Marcus Rashford, Xerxes,
that's right,
who they just signed, and Rasmus Højlund.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The guy, the Dane.
I don't know. It's not going to change instantly.
Sure, it's going to be kind of the same thing. Like, he's got to... But they were already often playing in their 3-4-3 in the first game, so...
So today was his first game with United?
They tied
Rubens?
Ipswich Town 1-1. Rashford scored in the second minute.
Not Ipswich.
So Ipswich got a point off them.
They're just doing the grind.
But yeah, they were in the... Well, they did a 3-4-2-1, but 3-4-3, same thing. Depends on how you look at it, because apparently it just depends on what country you're from and
yeah.
If you lay out the multiple layers or not. But he had... I don't know if they switched formations at all, but Xerxes and Højlund, who are they're both like 6'4" strikers. Yeah. They both came on at the same time.
Huh.
So he had a smaller lineup out there, but I saw some nice interchange play from United, but there wasn't as much end results, but like I said.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's inherited a worse team, in my opinion. I'm wondering how many Sporting players come on board at the end of the season.
Is there already talk about that?
Well, I know United were already linked with their striker, Victor Gokieres or whatever his name is.
Yeah, I forget who told me about that. I think he was...
Arsenal were linked with him because it's kind of like they're kind of missing that number 9 guy, and they know how to make chances.
Right.
And as you know, Gabriel Jesus is not the answer. He's a good squad player. I want him he's a backup striker, man. That's what he is. He's a good backup striker who can play one of the... Well, I'm being a little unfair. That's what he is right now. And he can definitely change that because...
It could be somebody else that could do it better.
Because there's a cool story right now in Italy, which Italy, most competitive league right now. Napoli, first place, 29 points. They beat Roma today to keep at the top.
Oh, wow.
Atalanta, second place, 28 points. Inter, third place, 28 points. Fiorentina, fourth place, 28 points. Lazio, fifth place, 28 points. And then you got Juventus in sixth on 25 points, who still haven't lost yet. There's 6 wins and 7 draws.
Wow. At least they're gaining points.
But, like, dang, dude, you got a lot of
Where's
teams.
AC Milan?
They're right below Juventus on 19 points.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's not as many as I thought they would have been.
Yeah. They had a little rough stint of form just then. But now playing 2 draws in Serie A, but coming off that Real Madrid win.
Right,
and the Champions League win. So
which was also a good one to watch.
Their recent form is not bad. They regret that tie they had against Cagliari.
When you said most competitive, you just are saying that judged off of the amount of points each team has?
Just how that's the top, man. All those teams are just everybody's like touching first place right now.
Yeah.
A tie away from first place, having that many teams like that, I find that to be very competitive. But what I was brought up Serie A was you got a guy who's scoring a lot of goals for Fiorentina, Mozekin. You know that guy?
No.
He was he started off in for Juventus. You know, he's a guy playing on a top team, so he got some goals. So that's why, but he wasn't the guy. So then he got a spell at Everton, didn't really pan out. Then he gets a spell at PSG, but now he's playing in a team that can make chances, and he scores 17 goals in 41 games. So it's like, okay, he's relevant again.
Mm-hmm.
Goes back to Juventus for a couple seasons and just coming off the bench with the odd goal. But kind of like, you know, he can play in a top team and have some success.
Still do well, yeah.
And then he gets to Fiorentina. Not really known for being a title challenger, but now he has 12 goals in 15 games.
Huh.
Really helping spearhead their success this season. So that's why that made me go like, okay, I don't want to like write off Gabriel Jesus forever. Maybe he can find, maybe you find your home where you can be the lead goal scorer and the number 9, but it's right now it's not happening for him. Like I say, he's a good squad player to have, but he's just not quite the guy that's going to spearhead your attack. Maybe he'll go to Tottenham. Oh man, from City to Arsenal to Tottenham.
Just pegging it down. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of what it was like for what's his face going to Fiorentina.
Mm-hmm.
Just gotta find the right environment to shine.
So, what does it take to have that concentration for 90 minutes? Takes some grit, right?
Yeah. It just doing the simple things.
Because I just keep finding excuses to play small clips of Mr. Dan Campbell from the Lions, even though this is not soccer, this is American football. They won again today.
What was the score?
Like 24-6. Just a dominant run game and defensive solidness. Defensive solidness, so they can attack. But
Who would have thought?
Yeah, right. Who would have thought? But here we go.
I mean, I'm just the culture that he does is
What makes us what we are and what we're gonna be. It's our core foundation, man. Grit. And what does it mean? In a nutshell, I think it means this. We'll go a little bit longer, we'll push a little harder, and we'll think a little deeper and a little sharper. These were unbreakable. Like, to me, it means we'll play anywhere. We'll play on grass, we'll play on turf, we'll go to landfill. Doesn't matter. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be.
And Detroit, for the first time in 32 years, your Lions have won a playoff game.
What are
Gets me going, dude.
He's an inspirational guy.
What is the Lions just a couple weeks ago, they lost their best defender, who was on the defensive line, which the more I finally learned about football, I didn't really know it. I was a bigger fan as a kid, but didn't know the inner workings because the exciting players are the quarterbacks, the receivers, the running backs.
Okay.
They are important. But what I've come to learn, when you've actually, I wasn't playing football, I wasn't being taught as a kid. I was just playing in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive line, defensive line, those are the cores, the big guys.
Mm-hmm.
To have a good defense, your defensive line needs to be good. If you're going to have a good offense, if the offensive line is good, good luck. So losing a key guy on the defensive line who helps stop the run, has all these sacks, he's out for the year, broken leg.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Big core guy on the team. They made a nice signing before the deadline was up to try to replace him. It's not going to be like for like, but a solid dude.
Mm-hmm.
And then just last week, one of their linebackers got hurt. He might be out for the year. He's a captain.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't really. Yeah, these guys are out. Doesn't matter. It's business as always.
Right.
The
you
team,
can't let it mess with the mentality.
Right. It's not that those guys are going to be missed, and maybe that plays a pivotal role down the line when it comes to playoffs. But they still only allowed 6 points.
Right.
The defense was still solid.
Keep the grit.
They still have the grit. Exactly. And now they're 10-1.
Which is nuts.
And finally, people are putting them above the Chiefs because right now I believe they're the best team in the NFL. Doesn't mean anything. Being the best team in the NFL in the regular season doesn't mean a damn thing.
Well, when you have the right culture, it'll transition into the playoffs.
Right, it does, but you only get you're only worth your salt in the playoffs. So I don't want to build up too much hype, but
yeah, but even if they don't do well in the playoffs, he would still have made the culture that they need for the next year, and I don't know. You can tell how much that guy cares about what he's doing.
And they need every bit of it right now because their conference or their division, they need all of that 10-1 to even to be first. If they were in any other division, it wouldn't be a problem. But they're in a division where 10-1 just barely has them in first place of their own division, which isn't.
Wow.
Which it happens, but it's not.
But for a team like
every now and
the
again
Lions,
you'll have every now and again you'll have a division where all the teams are winning. It's tough when 4 teams are all winning because you all play each other twice.
What are the other teams?
The Lions are 10-1. The Vikings are 9-2, and then the Packers are 8-3. So you have 3 powerhouses right there. And Chicago's 4-7, which is they're not as good, but when they just were pushing, they pushed the Vikings to overtime just today, so it's they can be competitive. But they need all of that 10-1 just to be first place of their own division. They do have the best record in the NFC.
Good for them, man.
The Chiefs are 10-1 in the AFC, but I hope they make the Super Bowl, man.
That would. I'll watch that game with you, dude.
I want them to just destroy in the Super Bowl, and then I'll just play all the clips. There's already good montages of all the analysts talking about how terrible a hire he was, and His press conference,
Yep.
it was terrible.
It's always going to be
He's
haters,
making
man.
all these terrible calls that are blowing them games, and he's taking accountability for some of his fourth down calls. But I can only imagine the whole team was like all in on these calls. But
Yeah.
it takes
And to
grit,
still
man.
do what he's doing even after that stuff.
It takes grit, and Pep Guardiola's got grit, man. He doesn't stop.
No.
He's obsessed, and I know he believes in his team and his players. So, if you're a Liverpool fan like me and you think it's all done and dusted, I would just calm down and just be happy with the 8-point lead. But just know that we got to do what we just did this first half. I mean, the first half of the season isn't fully over yet, but if you go into the winter break, if we get to the winter break, still 8-point lead, you got to do that all over again if you think City's not going to string games together and start winning games.
Right. Or other teams having a good streak and just winning
Because
games.
if we know one thing about Pep Guardiola, he's going to have his team keep doing the same thing every game for the end of the season here. Because as you were saying, they lost 4-0 to Tottenham, but you were like, man, how many did Haaland miss?
Oh, yeah. I mean, not even just him either.
So what happens when they get hot? Then all of a sudden these results turn into W's.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then when the offense gets hot, man, sometimes that inspires the defense to dig in a little deeper and play it just a little bit better.
Which is why the score doesn't always reflect, at least in soccer games, how the match actually went. Because, City lost 4-0, but it wasn't because Tottenham were City was just awful.
Right.
They were playing the game. They made mistakes. They didn't finish their chances. Yeah.
58% possession over Tottenham, 23 shots to Tottenham's 9, and 5 shots on target for City to Tottenham's 7.
Yeah. Tottenham were just a little bit more lethal.
Right. And I'll take away Tottenham's 4th, man. So 3 of 7 go in. If even one of the 5 had gone in, man, it could have changed the dynamic of the game at any point.
Yeah, goals give teams energy.
Not to take away from Tottenham, excellent victory, but
for sure, I loved watching
just
those
going that,
highlights.
It's just the fact that City played a game with 58% possession, 23 shots, 5 on target. They're going to keep doing that every game.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. And if you keep doing that every game, all of a sudden your losing streak's going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And this team has still players in it who are champions.
They're still making chances.
Right. So when champions know to keep going, when they still have people on the roster who've been there, done that. So Ruben Diaz has been there, done that with the team. De Bruyne has been there, done that. Gundogan's been there, done that. Haaland's now been there, done that because he's part of the treble-winning team. Foden's been there, done that, as much as I might be like a crap talker on Phil Foden.
Right.
John Stones has been there and done that now. Kyle Walker has been there and done that. The keeper, Ederson. Akanji's now he's pretty much a veteran for City now. He's been there for 3 seasons.
Yeah.
They got guys there that will pick up the slack of the Savinhos and Rico Lewis, who's one of the kids playing. You got all these kids are on the bench now because Ruben Diaz, Kovacic is out, Rodri's out, Doku's out, but they got players there. So
yeah, it's a matter of just
Bernardo Silva. Can't believe I didn't say him. I hate that guy. Just because I hate him because he's good. All right, that's all I'm saying. Like he hates Liverpool, so I hate him. I hate him out of love and respect, the same way that I hated Tom Brady. So,
fair enough.
So when Bernardo Silva goes to Barcelona, that hate will I think he'll probably go one day. It's always talked about, but maybe not. But Man City,
plenty of homes out there.
I just hope that this streak continues because December 1st they play Liverpool.
Oh.
So if we can get them to go 3 more points down the tube, that would be great. So
we'll see, man.
So I hope when their next game is against Feyenoord in the Champions League,
Who, Liverpool?
No, City.
Oh, okay.
So if they could lose that game, so they can bring in all the losing mentality to Liverpool, that would be great. I hope they don't.
How many days is that?
In 2 days is the Champions League game,
Right.
and then December 1st is the Liverpool game. So I hope they don't figure it out in 2 days and then bring what they figured out to Liverpool.
Sadly, to me, that seems like enough time.
Yeah. But like I said, they've lost. Their losing streak stretched from October 30th to now. So it's been about a month of it not going well, which is why I know any day now it's going to end.
It'll be December 1st. Watch.
That's what I mean. Like, I don't feel like, oh man, we're gonna beat Man City. I'm not going in like 100% confident.
No, I mean, I think there'll be a small gap in the table between Liverpool and City. It's just how much will it really be? Will it be enough space for another team to squeeze into that second place spot and maintain it? You know, like that's a lot of pressure too.
And eventually you're going to lose at some point. And Liverpool haven't lost a game since that Nottingham Forest game.
Oh.
So you can't stay perfect either. So
yeah,
every now and again you're going to drop a point. Like, I'll take a draw against City all day.
Yeah. I wish I could watch that game on December 1st just to see.
Well, December 1st is a Sunday.
Yeah, I'm going to be in New York City with some friends.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'll just watch the highlights, but we'll see how it goes.
But I think that wraps up this episode. Thank you for listening. I think we're about 2
thank
hours
you guys
deep here, but
for being patient and just having an interest in soccer.
today
and
is
football.
November 24th. Tomorrow, the last episode will come out. Episode 11.
The previous one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hello to you all in the future, in the past. Goodbye.
Thank you guys. Bye.